and welcome to the Oddity Archive, that other show where failure is always an option. And speaking of failures, have you ever heard of the Arthur Godfrey Doomsday Message? Well, Arthur Godfrey, the late comedian, was to deliver the big message if we were to ever get nuked. The whole "we are being / have been nuked" message that was to go out across the TV and radio airwaves. Well, we've known that it's existed for a long time. It's not really a big secret, but a print has remained very, very elusive until very recently. A good friend of mine actually got his hands, I don't know how, but he got his hands on a Super 8mm reduction print of this thing, and he actually lent it to me because it would make a great archive episode. And so I went to Telescene the print so I could, share it with you guys, and my projector kinda choked on it. You do know I was joking, right? I mean, if somebody really got their hands on the Godfrey message, it sure as hell wouldn't be me. And indeed, I think whoever would get their hands on it would never trust me with it, and probably rightly so. So, let me just be perfectly honest with you guys. Lately, the production schedule of this show has pretty much been eating me alive. And I still want to have a new video out for you guys, but I need a little break just for my own sanity. So I figured, well, maybe we could just take a little informal trip around Archive Land. It'll be a lot easier for me, and you'll have something to watch, and hopefully something that you'll enjoy. So, yeah. I guess I'm going to have to get up, aren't I? Think of this as your own little home movie, complete with barely existent editing. Yes, I usually keep my script behind the box, and, well, this script is pretty well useless now, isn't it? Whatever. Let's grab the old camcorder and start poking around. So, as always, I apologize for the shaky camera and the autofocus, but sometimes you just have to use it to get in those tight spots, and this is one of them. So this is my little home entertainment center, my usual makeshift one. At the bottom is my choice Laserdisc player. It also does CDs and video CDs. And it does laser karaoke, and it can do reverb and stuff like that. So it's my choice unit. I enjoy it. I have, I think, 4 Laserdisc players, all of which work, granted with varying degrees of success, but this is the considered the good one right now. Just above it, Blu-ray player, which also doubles as standard DVD player as it does for a lot of folks. And then anybody that saw Format Wars has seen the CED before, the old RCA Selectavision. It's a mono unit, and so it's coax only. So if I want to capture something, I have to run it to the coax input of the VCR and then use the RCA output on the VCR and then go to the camcorder and the computer. So that's how that's done. My old TV kind of died, so I went modern, got a flat screen now, and the old TV, I still have it, but you can't change channels on it anymore, and even with the remote, it just doesn't work anymore. I can still hook stuff up to it, and so it's semi-functional, but it's been effectively replaced. If I let's see, if I go in tight here, you can see the front of my Sega Genesis, which I hardly ever play, and VCR, DVR, my Garfield clock, which has been in service since I was 7. I don't know why. I need to get rid of it. It doesn't even set the time anymore. I have to plug it in at midnight or noon. It's really silly, but yeah, there you go. My home entertainment center of sorts. So I've been asked many times, what do I use to capture my VHS beta Laserdisc footage? And, well, this is it. This is an old Firewire, early Firewire Sony Handycam. This used to belong to my parents. This thing's from about 2001, maybe. And this is also what I used to use to film Archive. Digital 8. It's responsible for all the carpet vision and all the jokes I used to make about carpet vision. Remember this look? So yeah, this is it. And it has an in-out jack on it. Let's see if I can't open it up. Let's see. You probably can't see it too well, but it's right in there. And it's great. I can run both directions instead of like with most camcorders, you can only run from the camcorder to the TV. This you can run out from something into here, and then I can just pass it on to the computer. And I like this because I've tried standard capture cards before, and I just don't like them. I like this because it somehow manages to retain kind of the flavor of the format. That's really the best way I can describe it. A VHS really looks like a VHS that you'd be watching on an old tube TV or a Laserdisc or whatever. So, yeah, and this is what I also used to use, as I said, to film archive. Okay, so here's my basic capture setup. In this case, I have the beta hooked up, and I'm using the internal mic on the camcorder for this because it's I can't do two at once. But anyway, beta on the bottom, camcorder in the middle, computer on top. I'm just running to iMovie, really simple. Let me zoom in on the camcorder. So, see? And up to the computer. Like I said, I like to keep it nice and simple. Well, the only way I could show you the new camera is by way of the old camera. So here it is. Sony Handycam, 5.3 megapixel, 8 gig hard drive, SD card slot. It is a very low-end model. It's not a terribly nice camera, but it's better than the one you're watching on, in my opinion. Carpet Vision, as it's come to be known, is still kind of an issue on the archive, but it's not as bad as it once was. So, yeah, I just thought I'd show it to you. It'll probably make its nice little noise, yeah. Nothing particularly brilliant. My Vanna moment. Okay, so I own 3 8mm film projectors, one 8, one Super 8, one Dual 8 with sound. Unfortunately, the one I really love, the Dual 8 with sound, doesn't work. So the other two work. My regular 8 and my standard Super 8, both silent, work, and here they are. You're not going to see them all, but I don't know much about this one. I've had it since I was about 14 or 15 years old. My dad found a bunch of his old home movies, and he had them transferred to VHS and was going to get rid of the film, and I said, no, I'll take it, so I've got them, and geek that I am, I went and I found a projector. I found this, I think, at an antique store or something. I paid way too much for it, but I actually had the money at the time. I think it was about $50. It was filthy, and let me open that up. It's been cleaned a few times over the years, but there you go. It's pretty standard. I've heard varying sources on how old this is. I've heard as early as 1948 and as late as 1964. I don't know for sure. I can't really find a hell of a lot of information, but it works. It works well. There's kind of some cobwebs in there that need to be taken care of, but I just haven't had the time or the ambition to dismantle this thing once again. And like most film projectors, it stinks like hell when you play it, but it works, and it's kind of cool. It doesn't have anything fancy. Closest to fancy it has is a little editing splice here, I guess, if you want to edit something on the fly. But it's got forward and reverse and still, and that's about it. So this would be my good projector, Dual 8 sound, but it just doesn't really work. If I turn it around here, you probably won't see it, but the AC jack is pretty screwed up. It's broken in there. You can't really see it, so getting it to land when I plug in is something of an impossibility. And it doesn't take film. The audio does work. I can get it to crackle and do stuff. I can get signal out of it if I try, but like I said, can't really load it. I've opened this a few times. The belt's okay, so it just has some electrical problems that I honestly don't know how to fix, so I keep it around just in case I find another one like this that works, then I could have at least have some parts. But yeah, this is this would be nice, but it's not. So this is my audio setup. I know it looks like a big towering mess, and I guess it kind of is, but uh, everything has its function, except for maybe the CD changer. That's more just for when I listen to CDs to keep the wear and tear off the CD burner. But let me try and point these things out. On the top here, get my finger in the shot. Turntable, USB turntable. I can fine tune the speed. Of course, it has RCA outs on it, and it works just as well as it needs to. It does a good job. Below that, Pioneer cassette deck, nothing special. You could probably find one in the thrift store. Below that, CD changer. Below that, CD burner. Below that, the receiver, and it has Dolby Digital and DTS and all that fun stuff. And right there is the 8-track player. So when I'm capturing stuff for the archive, I don't use the receiver. I just go direct from the turntable or whatever straight into the CD burner, and that's more or less it. I do take it to the computer and clean it up a little. When I say clean up, I mean I'll filter a hissy cassette just a bit. If there's an LP with a lot of clicking and stuff on it, I'll try and clean it up a bit. But I do try and keep it fairly pure, but I also try and go for listenability too. So it can be a bit of a balancing act. But yeah, everything has its purpose, and there's really not much more to say about it. So I know I'm going to take some flack for how I keep my vinyl stored, but it's a storage issue. There's really not much I can do about it. The bottom row seems to stay pretty well intact. Of course, a lot of it was a little beaten up just from being most of this being thrift store finds. Yes, I have Muskrat Love now. If you've seen the Record Ripoffs episode, you probably remember that from being the box shot. And it was just a gag at the time, but I have found a copy. I just found it in a thrift store bin. I didn't really seek it out or anything. And so you may have seen the commercial on Fuzzy Memories. I believe I used part of the commercial on the first Record Ripoffs episode, which means, yes, I need to do another one. I've accrued enough of these records that I think I can pull it off now, and I could probably do a whole one on TEJ records, or tin-eared junk records, as my friends at Fuzzy Memories like to call it. But, yep, Muskrat Love, Saturday Night Disco, and these are incredibly flimsy covers. Hustle 76, so there's at least half an episode right there. This might look familiar to people who have looked at the old blog, which is now defunct, and might know the version of Carly Simon's You're So Vain that's on here, the really unbelievably bad version of You're So Vain. Another super hits record. And here's a Christian album. I just couldn't turn down the Christian pirate motif with the devil saying unfair. And I believe this is the same dummy used on TV years later, if you're into the Found Footage Festival. You've probably seen it. I haven't listened to it yet. I have a couple of adults party records that I need to look at a little closer at some point, so that's the archive stuff. And then it gets back into more my standard musical tastes. This plain black cover, yes, it's the This Is Spinal Tap soundtrack. What better way to have it than on vinyl? Excuse me. Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. Lot of Stiff Records type stuff in here. Graham Parker, Rachel Sweet, and then we get on to Redbone, and then more soft rock, Paul Davis, got some Renaissance stuff, Damn You Movie Explorer for getting me into Renaissance, Ray Stevens, Roy Buchanan, quite possibly my all-time favorite guitarist, Sensational Alex Harvey Band, Genesis, German vinyl, Hoyt Axton, some of my comedy records, Fairport Convention, and I have a bunch of Beatles albums lying around. So Sgt. Pepper's, there's a Riding Millsap in there for some reason. Rubber Soul, Magical Mystery Tour, and Zappa and the Mothers. That's the original pressing, by the way. And just on and on. Jerry Rafferty. I love Jerry Rafferty. More Rachel Sweet. Buckingham Nicks. Bob Seger. Richard Thompson. Henry the Human Fly. See if I can't get a little better shot at that. There you go. Supposedly the worst selling album ever put out by Warner. But yeah. There's that. On the bottom, if I can get to it, is stuff that's already been on the archive. So the Christmas special, Shirley and Squirrely K-Tel, the infamous Kitty Disco records are in here, Italian Dance Party. Then it just kind of goes off more into just stuff that, again, I just was interested in. Some Leon Redbone in there, Nick Gilder, Benny Mardones, who seems to keep turning up on the archive, the original Nuggets compilation, Alice Cooper, and on and on. So, yeah, now you have a pretty good idea of the stuff I tend to listen to when I'm not doing archive. So I guess you could argue that I only have a small collection of good 8-tracks, as in working 8-tracks, that is, not necessarily aesthetically good. But this is the most gaudy case in the world, but it houses my 8-tracks. It's got really weird red quasi-velvet lining. And let me try and pull back here a little. So I don't know what to say about this. I have a few K-Tel tapes. And I do have a record rip-offs candidate in here, including Short People. I try and look at that artwork. It looks almost religious, even though I know it's not. Just something about the way the paper crinkles. But I haven't gotten around to transferring that one. That needs to happen at some point. Again, like with the vinyl, I'm not totally insane. I have some Eagles records. I got a couple Three Dog Nights. I got Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers. I got the Commodores. I got a few soul ones. I've got the Stylistics, which you probably saw in the 8-tracks episode, 10 years after. So that's my good 8-track collection. So it's no real secret that I collect Laserdiscs a fair amount. I also collect a lot of things. I have CDs all over the damn place. Literally all over the damn place, but anyway, this is about the Laserdiscs, so let me get in here. The Big Nightmare Before Christmas CAV set. It's a Mad Mad World. I have a few MST3K DVDs and a lot of it on VHS. The Complete Art of Buster Keaton, and if I can get back here, I keep most of my music ones in here, so see if I can't get to my much prized Kate Bush at the Hammersmith disc. And I have a lot of her stuff. See if I can't get to it and still actually have it in the shot. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I consider myself a fairly diehard fan. And I have a few of these 8-inchers. I got the Motels. My Manos, the Hands of Fate signed autograph. Yes, that's real. I have all sorts of music stuff. I got a Roseanne Cash in there, Eddie Money. I got Fairport Convention in here, Randy Newman, Richard Thompson. Where is that Fairport disc? There it is. And I have a lot of silent stuff, obviously. More Keaton. I've got other sets, The Crowd in the Wind, Show People, which is a wonderful comedy. I really like that movie. One of the few romantic comedies I like, Ninotchka. I really like that one with Greta Garbo. And, of course, it wouldn't be Oddity Archive without Elvira, would it? And parts of it just kind of look like the nostalgia critic's worst nightmare. Let's see if I can't get to some of those, like Penn and Teller Get Killed. And let's see what else I've got in here. Stay Tuned, which is an interesting view on Laserdisc. They play with the aspect ratio to make it fit your TV in more than one way. Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Summer Vacation, which Doug has done. He's also done Rover Dangerfield, and I like that movie. Damn you, Nostalgia Critic, I like that one. I got some horror stuff, a couple of the Halloween movies, Halloween 4 here. I like that one on Laserdisc. It just has a certain quality to it. Halloween 2, which has got, sadly, a pretty strong amount of rot. What else have I got in here? Just, kind of garden variety stuff, more horror stuff. A couple of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, New Nightmare, and then Annie Hall. So that's the cream of the collection. And just below the laser discs are more of my DVDs, more silent stuff. Got my Manos, The Hands of Fate autograph here from the Master and his daughter who played Debbie in the movie. And if I get in close, I have some of my more prized VHSs, all the Double Dares. You Can't Do That on Television. See if I can't get that one out here. Money Madness, which is about Eddie Money. Kind of a premature documentary. I think it's from 1979 or so. And then just banging my arm around and stuff because I can't really get in here because I have it overcrowded. But there you go. And here's about a third of my cassette collection. Again, nothing really archive-worthy, but, you know, more of a look into what kind of oldies nut I am. So, more Richard Thompson, Nick Lowe, Sam Kinison. 2 copies of the same tape because one of them got chewed up. Jules Shear, Laura Branigan. Yeah. Nothing that you wouldn't expect out of me. And if I go in tight here, well, there's the Jimmy Fifth tape that you've heard on stuff like, what was that episode? Scary Logos. Redbone, I have that one on vinyl as well. The album that Connie Francis was selling on TV back in the 70s. Yeah. So I don't own very many CEDs, but I do treasure some of my titles, especially this one, The Beatles, Let It Be, which has never made it to DVD, legitimately. Linda Ronstadt, What's New, and both of these are pretty decent quality, better than you'd expect. The Three Stooges, which should be familiar to people who've seen Format Wars, it's the one that skips like you wouldn't believe it. It's, as much as I love the Stooges, it really is kind of my sacrificial lamb disc, if you want to call it that. Chaplin, Modern Times, The African Queen. Nothing archive-worthy, but just, you know, titles that are interesting. You've probably seen that one in some variations of the archive promo poster, 7 Days in May. John Wayne, The Searchers, that's actually one of my better CEDs. That one very rarely skips. It's in good shape. And another John Wayne. But yeah, not a big CED collection. There are a few others, but this is the heart of it. So here's another batch of my laser discs. Some more music ones. Tears for Fears, Starship, We Built This City. Remember that one from Format Wars? And then some more horror ones. The first couple Friday the 13th, which have pretty nasty rot. Christine, Thinner, Salem's Lot. A few others. Carrie, the Criterion version. Okay, without giving too much away, this is the VHS Vault box. My huge backlog of VHS Vault candidates. And on top is a VHS camcorder adapter with somebody's wedding tape in there. I was not expecting that when I bought that, but yeah, I keep a couple other things in here too. My Betamax rewinder. In the bag are the Aimvest tapes that you've already seen. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, I have quite a few VHS tapes that I need to go through at some point. So here's another box. I seem to have a thing for boxes, don't I? We're off in my cruddy little storage area now, my very dark, dingy, lousy storage area. And these are things I've picked up that would be VHS vaults if they weren't actual movies. I mean, these would be better served by somebody who really reviews movies. So, hey, Brad Jones, Cinema Snob, if you happen to see this and any of these look interesting, just give me a holler. I'd be more than happy to share them with you. This one, even though it's just a supposedly blank tape, it has a couple of really weird B movies on it. One of which is this, I don't know how to describe it, but it stars Joni from Happy Days. How can you go wrong with that? Scream time about some guys that, if memory serves, check out some possessed videotapes from the video store. Demented, the only movie I've ever seen that opens with a gang rape scene, because, you know, what a great way to start your movie. Screening copy of Rockula, just for the rocker dude and me. Featuring Bo Diddley, because he really, really needed the money. And then some that are fairly well known, like Kiss Meets Phantom of the Park, Satan's Cheerleaders, which, I mean, just how can you say no to a movie like that? The Seduction, because haven't you always wanted to see Morgan Fairchild nude? I still need therapy. Anyway, and then, of course, The Demon Lover with Skippy from Family Ties. So, again, Cinema Snob, if you're interested, give me a holler. So here we are with one of my boxes of blank beta off-air stuff, and I believe all the ones in this box have commercials and stuff on them, or are from HBO or something. This L250 here is my only on-TV footage. This dates to about 1981. This tape is probably a 78 or 9, but unfortunately the footage is from the frickin' 90s, wouldn't you know it? So, like I said, I have a bunch of these, and I'm always playing around with them. But just wanted to give you a little taste of what the beta stash looked like. And I have a couple boxes of VHSs fairly similar to this. But, you know, you've seen the beta, you've seen the VHS, and besides, these are far more interesting. Okay, so we're truly in the deepest, darkest depths of archive land here. A couple of my descrambler boxes. Bottom one's a VC2 Plus, top one's a Manhattan cable TV box, probably from the late 70s, and the bottom one is from, I believe, 1991. So we've got that, and if I swing around here, you can see very darkly my video games. Yes, I do have some. I don't really play them a whole lot, but I like having them. My Atari 2600 NES. You're really going to get a look into the darkest of the dark here. I've got my little stash of beta stuff. So, yeah, Gallagher, Warren Zevon. I love Warren Zevon. And one of these I can't show you because it's got nudity on the picture, but The Day After. Of course, when the archive guy have The Day After. And where's some others? Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy, original 1979 video. I know it's really dark. We're really in the back, in the corner here. There is no light here. There never is. Revenge of the Nerds on beta, because there is absolutely nothing more 80s than that. It's the only reason I even picked it up. Bonnie and Clyde in a nice big box for a nice tiny little beta tape. And I really liked the artwork on this. I don't think you'll see it real well. But, yep. And then, of course, the old school video game center. I still have a couple of boxed Atari games. A whole bunch of Atari games in here. I'm too lazy to open it up. Well, that and everything will probably come crashing down if I do. But, yeah, this is kind of the auxiliary area. There's a TV just a few feet away from here, so you've seen it in the archive a couple times, most notably in Intermission. That's my other tube TV, which also hardly ever gets used because I'm always in the hell house, as I like to call it, making archive episodes, and if I'm not there, I'm at the thrift store, I'm at work, you name it. So, anyway, that's about it for the storage area. Why don't we head back over to the hell house, huh? get this hooked back up here. Alright, so we're back at the set. Obviously, I'm kind of off mic right now. This is my SM57, one of them, and this is just a cheapy and very, very dirty Radio Shack windscreen. It's really meant for more like an SM58, something with a bigger grill, but that probably sounded beautiful. Here's the mic that I usually use. Let me try and adjust the camera here. It's another one, Shure SM57, get a nice up-close look at it. Probably the least sexy, most common mic in the world. Dynamic mic, XLR, nothing special. Every audio person has seen about 1 million of these in their lives. And it works for me. It seems to give me a little more oomph to my voice, my wonderfully sexy voice. And indeed, when Archive first started, I used to use a Rode NT1. This is probably about 20 years old, but I haven't had that long. I had a few years, bought it used. And it's good for music when you're competing with a bunch of other frequencies, but not so much for narration. It comes off as a little bright, especially for my voice. And it brings out all the sibilants in my voice, which there are quite a few. So, yeah, that's what I used to use. And what am I forgetting here? You probably want to see the box, don't you? What's in the box? What's on the box? I've been asked 1 million times, what's in the box? What's behind the box? Well, you're going to be very, very disappointed here. It's just a standard paper box, and in the box is just a book, maybe a videotape, just whatever is handy to weigh it down because it gets very wobbly. And indeed, it's usually pretty crooked, so I usually have to straighten it up with some folded paper, something like that. So there you go. And this box is, it's seen better days. It's probably going to need replacing pretty soon. It's, yeah, that's the inside of it. I've never written anything in there, never drawn anything in there, probably never will. Maybe you were expecting graffiti. I don't know. But, yeah, as you can tell, the box is kind of bowing, buckling, whatever you want to call it. Its flaps are coming apart. They're riding up. Let's see if I can't get that in the shot here. Yeah, see, it's seen better days, but it still works just well enough. I'm sure it's going to be totally crooked and off now. So, yeah, after all this time, you've wanted to see what's in the box, what's behind the box. Now you know. So, let me get back to my seat here. And voila, I'm back. So, let's see, what else is there? I've been asked several times, how long does it take to make an archive episode? How do I make it? Well, it's not exactly a quick process. It takes me, for an average archive episode, 7 to 10 days. And that's anywhere from 2 days up to a week writing, trying to just let the idea cure in my mind, trying to come up with jokes, try and look at it in a different way. Sometimes it doesn't really happen. But yeah, there's that. Research is part of the writing process, obviously, and it's a very boring process usually. Sometimes you learn stuff, and it can be pretty interesting, but more often than not, it's more just trying to confirm what you think you know, and it's nothing special. It's searching, cross-referencing. If you know any experts, you try and get in touch with them, and that's really about it. So it takes forever, but it takes about 10 seconds to describe. The filming takes about, let me fix my box here. It takes a day, if that. I try and do it in about half a day when I film and record it. I do it all at once usually. And I try and have the script really as tight as I can beforehand, and I try and rehearse it just a little bit so I can basically just sit down and run through it and get it done. I admit filming is not really my favorite thing to do. So, yeah, it gets it done, and I do always try and do a good job with it. Of course, you have your brain farts, and if you have other things in your life going on, this stuff happens. But that's how that works. And then the editing... this is obviously a separate audio entity. This is going to an M-Box to Pro Tools on the computer, and it's all just out of the shot here. And so I have the separate audio, and it does have a fair amount of EQ and reverb on it. So I take, once I film, I get it off the camera on the computer, and then I'm losing my light. I'm always having problems with the light in here. You're at the mercy of Mother Nature. I generally don't use artificial lighting. I like the more organic look of a nice sunny day, and it gives a nice color and nice hue to the picture. And so, yeah, that's how that works. I've probably pissed off every lighting person in the world by saying that. But anyway, I take my film segments and losing the light, and I'm always contending with cars driving down the street and whatever, airplanes flying overhead, which I think most people kind of do who do this sort of thing. Anyway, I take my segments and I pick the best one. I take it, I edit it, I resync the audio, and it gets thrown into the final episode. And it's not high tech. I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people by saying this, but everything about Archive is very, very ghetto. And maybe appropriately so. I use both operating systems. I use PC and Mac. And I usually use the Mac. I have to use the Mac for the film segments because Pro Tools is on Mac. I hate Pro Tools on PC. It is so unstable, but it's nice on a Mac. So that's how that happens. And then once I have all the pieces, and I also, when I do riffs, that's all done in Pro Tools. So once I have that together, I take it to the PC and I use Windows Movie Maker. Yeah, I know. Really high tech, really sexy. So there you go. Really have much more to say about this. So, I'm just going to end it here and say thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy Archive. I hope you will continue watching. And that's it. I'll see you next time. Are we done? Who the hell am I talking to anyway?